Hello and welcome to National Focus. I'm Julian Morris. In the headlines, Dominica observes Local Government Month, new status of children laws to create a gentler society, and the 12th edition of Jazz and Creole deemed a success. The details of the headline stories and more when we return. Welcome back. New legislation changing the status of children born outside of marriage passed in Parliament last week is expected to bring increased significance to children born out of wedlock all over Dominica. Parliamentary representative for Colliho constituency, Senator the Honorable Darren Pinard, explored the historical roots of the name bastard used to refer to children born out of wedlock and welcomed the change that this new law would bring to these illegitimate and often vilified children.
Whilst we may not always be able to control what is said on the streets, Mr. Speaker, with this act, however, we will now and forever remove any significance in law to referring to someone as being illegitimate or a bastard. Mr. Speaker, what did it mean to be illegitimate or a bastard child? According to the old English common law, bastard children were no one's child. This meant that they could not take or make any claim on their parents for support, nor was anyone indebted or responsible for their care and upbringing. These children often had to rely on the mercies of monasteries and later on the parishes for their upkeep. It was not until years later, centuries later, that fathers were given some responsibility to be financially responsible for the bastard children, Mr. Speaker. So imagine that in today's Dominica, a country like ours, where a majority of our children are being born outside of marriage, that means the majority of our population would not be legally entitled to financial support from their fathers and would also have no claim to their father's estate.
The Status of Children Act bears special significance for one community where the percentage of children born out of wedlock is staggering.
Mr. Speaker, 81% of the children born in my constituency were born outside of marriage. It would be scary to imagine that such a large number of our beloved children in my constituency would have been fatherless and without any social standing in society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we note also that this bill reaches well beyond our currently young children. Many of us adults were in fact born outside of marriage and are therefore also subject to the rights and protections being offered under this bill. Under the old bastardy laws, I would not be Darren Pinard. I would not have been able to carry my father's name, Mr. Speaker. Whilst he doesn't have much to leave behind, I also would not have been able to benefit at all from any of his estate, since I was the firstborn and the only one born outside of his marriage.
The minister is of the view that this new legislation will promote a more compassionate society.
We can easily see that these old laws undoubtedly would have led to a failed society. We would be a country with exorbitant crime rate, lawlessness, and chaos. But even worse, Mr. Speaker, we would be what could be described as a heartless society. With this act, we become a gentler and more caring society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Part 1, Section 4 of this act removes any legal distinction between children born inside or outside of marriage. All children, regardless of circumstances, are equal under this act.
The Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports and Community Development, through the Cooperative Division, in collaboration with the International Labour Organization, has hosted a stakeholder consultation aimed at improving the policies of Dominica's Cooperative Division. This stakeholder consultation was the result of technical assistance from the International Labour Organization in a bid to strengthen the country's cooperative sector, making recommendations for the improvement in the policy framework. A team of consultants visiting Dominica in February interacted with a wide range of stakeholders in the sector, including 3 credit unions, 15 non-financial cooperatives, the Credit Union League, the Financial Regulator, and the Cooperative Development Division. Following these meetings, a consultation was held on Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023, at the Goodwill Parish Hall to present and validate their findings and recommendations. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports and Community Development, Mr. Lucian Blackmore, told the participants that their engagement in the consultation was important if government is to create a relevant policy framework.
For you to be effective, you have to basically know what you should be doing. So doing the right thing is being effective. And I'm a very serious believer of that, because we're here rethinking or developing policy for cooperative because we want to revamp the cooperative industry. And to do that, we want to be productive, or we want to ensure productivity is our number one agenda. And going forward for you, productivity is two simple factors, or two factors in an equation. One is efficiency, and the next one is effectiveness.
Mr. Blackmore stated the new policy framework should be efficient and effective in order to boost productivity.
If you do not ensure that your policy is relevant, you may have systems and processes that are very efficient, but yet still ineffective. So if you're thinking of doing an exam and you get half right is like half wrong, it's not right. So you're just about 50%. So both part of the equation is very important. So your part today is ensuring that the right things are being done. So you could well understand and appreciate the significance of your participation today, is ensuring that at the end of the day, whatever is endorsed, I would say on the back end of the ministry, would be something that was bought in, something that you owned, and we may say so at the grassroots level, or we may say a bottom-up approach to things. So it's all meant to be a very inclusive process. And for the process to be inclusive, it means, therefore, we have to have very active interaction.
He further urged the stakeholders to take consultations like these seriously, as it is required to create a policy framework that will benefit Dominica.
I really want to urge you to take this consultative process very seriously. It is you making your contribution for what the policy framework should be for Dominica. Where is it we want to see the industry going? So at the end of the day, we can put in all the necessary prerequisites and supporting mechanisms for ensuring the process is very rewarded at the end of the day. Going forward as well, I really want to ensure that we look at the cooperative industry as a very significant player in the productive sector in Dominica. And it shouldn't be left for the imagination. It's something that I think I can go even boldly and say that the cooperative industry is endemic to our fusion of things in Dominica.
Parliamentary representative for the Kalinago constituency, Honorable Kozia Frederick, has highlighted the role that the Dominica Labour Party administration has played over the years in upholding the rights of the Kalinago people. The parliamentary representative, who is also Minister for Kalinago Upliftment, was refuting comments from an opposition senator, which Minister Frederick thought contained subtle levels of discrimination. The statements were made during debate on the Status of Children Act, one of 5 family laws passed in Parliament last week. The opposition senator suggested that perhaps special attention should be given to Kalinago children who are in unique circumstances. Minister Frederick pushed back on the idea of singling out certain groups in our society for special treatment, which could lead to discrimination.
Because we are here speaking to rights that are international, and if we pull out the Kalinago piece, or the Rasta piece, or any other piece, we may well be creating discrimination among children. So it appears that discrimination in every sense of the word is a clear separation of people based on their religion, their race, the color of their skin, etc. And so it is important that this critical piece of legislation is so important, because what it does, it creates and equal opportunity across the line.
Minister Frederick noted that while the Kalinago people have faced discrimination in the past, significant change has been taking place, particularly under the current Labour administration.
For many, many moons, yes, there have been levels of discrimination against people of indigenous heritage. But I can safely say that if you want to know more about that situation, a simple drive to the Kalinago space, an interaction with some of the folks who are their children who have been able to access all of the trappings of the education program meted out by this administration that I'm very proud to be part of. You will clearly understand that children have been able to benefit across the board within the Kalinago space. And more importantly, even to the fact that we are able to, per capita, muster the largest number of university graduates per capita.
Mr. Frederick made the point that the enactment of these pieces of legislation brings Dominica on par with international conventions for the elimination of all forms of discrimination against children.
This piece of legislation is part of I just want to, you want a clarification, a bit of education, yes? There's what we call the UN DRIPS, which is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And what it intends to do is to create all of that. And it appears in the laws that we've been doing across the board in Dominica that we are in tandem with the UN DRIPS. And so the people who are out there speaking about the rights and the government not able to celebrate the rights of indigenous people, it appears they clearly misunderstand the laws that exist within our country. And even our constitution makes it clear that every citizen within that particular space is afforded that right. And the government of the Dominica Labour Party have, for some recent history in the last 20 years, been able to deal with all of the trappings of discrimination. And I will tell you, though trappings of it exist, we are very mindful that in the general scheme of things, we do ensure that the people of Kalinago heritage and Kalinago descent do get, as we say, a piece of the pie. And so we will continue to remain equal citizens in our country, and we will not be victims or will not accept the subtle levels of discrimination that some of us may try to insert in a conversation.
Celebrations for Local Government Month 2023 have kicked off with a third church service at the Grand Fond Catholic Church. This, as the 34th Local Government Month is being observed under the theme, A More Resilient Local Government that Delivers Quality Service. Minister with Responsibility for Local Government, Honorable Greta Roberts, has recognized the importance and contribution of local government to Dominica's development.
Every aspect of community life is the business of local government. And while the council may have specific tasks and services they provide, the community leaders must make it their business to know what is going on in their jurisdiction and ensure that systems are in place to keep people safe.
Minister Roberts says the role of local government is changing and those involved must become familiar with the new demands made of local authorities. She added that councils must focus on the impact of climate change and successive weather events which have caused widespread damage in Dominica.
Over the last decade, it has become more obvious that communities around Dominica are confronting the effects of climate change in various forms. The impact of Hurricane Maria, and more recently, the trough system, which impacted the east and southeast of the island, impressed on us all an urgency to identify gaps and vulnerabilities in our respective villages around Dominica and take steps to build resilience against existential threats and hazards.
Minister Roberts called on community leaders to pay close attention to the vision and strategic partnerships outlined in the Climate Resilient Recovery Plan.
3 key pillars in the plan are robust economy, strong communities, and collective consciousness, which are all within the scope of the local government authorities to enhance resilience at the community level. As Dominica is on a path to become the first climate resilient country in the world, intervention at the individual, family, and community levels will be the building blocks to attaining national resilience. Our development thrust has certainly changed, and each decision made about a development intervention must be informed by environmental risk assessment and careful analysis for limiting risks and vulnerabilities. Local government bodies will have to play lead roles in ensuring that community needs assessments are done and priority interventions are identified. The Climate Resilience Recovery Plan places heavy emphasis on establishing well-trained and managed disaster management committees.
Local Government Month is observed annually in the month of May. A number of activities have been planned as part of celebrations for this year's observance, including church services, radio programs, hikes, and community-based cleanup and beautification projects. Meanwhile, villages of Wesley and Marigot go to the polls on Wednesday, May 3, 2023, to elect new village councils. The 7 candidates nominated to contest the Wesley Village Council general election include Kristen Brazil, Deshawn Marie Brond Phillip, Francis Randy Prosper, Charles McClay Richards, Clint Rule, and Shernon Telemack. 12 candidates have been nominated to contest the Marigot Village Council general election. They are Alvin Alexander, Hig Bazil, Beulah Claire Bedminster, Arlington Burnett, Daniel Daly, Marietta Gordon, Moesha Jones, Brian Linton, and Washington Linton, Michael Pascal, Harold Micah Tyson, and Wengert Wilson Williams. Voting in both elections begin at 8 o'clock in the morning and will close at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Electors are urged to exercise the right to vote. While residents of Wesley and Marigot go to the polls, a new council will be inaugurated in the north. This as the 18th inaugural meeting of the Tartan Savant Pai Two-Curry Village Council takes place on Wednesday from 4 p.m. at the Savant Pai Primary School. 8 councillors will take the oath of office to run the day-to-day affairs of the 4 villages for the next 3 years. Addresses will come from Parliamentary Representative Honourable Roland Royer, Minister with Responsibility for Local Government Honourable Greta Roberts, and Prime Minister the Honourable Roosevelt Skerrit. You are watching National Focus. More when we return. Welcome back. The UK's Climate and Environment Attaché for the Caribbean, Alex Grosny, says the UK is looking forward to seeing the people of Dominica reap the benefits of homegrown renewable power generation. Mr. Grosny, accompanied by other UK representatives, were recently touring the geothermal development site in Loda, where the second production well was recently completed. He noted that the Caribbean had huge potential for renewable energy from geothermal, solar, and offshore wind.
What's fantastic about a project like this is its ability to make vital progress on so many fronts at once, I think. On energy security, on economic security, and on climate security. We live in a world where energy security is increasingly important. A state's ability to generate its own electricity from end to end, independent from global fluctuations in fossil fuel prices, is a huge asset. Recent events such as Russia's illegal war in Ukraine have really brought home that truth to us, I think. Cheap, abundant and reliable energy is a foundation stone of a thriving economy, and it is critically important for the development of vulnerable island states like Dominica.
Mr. Grosny says Dominica may be small, but it's making an impact in terms of its contribution to the reduction of global warming temperatures.
This project is not only an important step on the way towards Dominica becoming energy independent, but even towards becoming a net exporter of energy in the not-so-distant future, and also towards Dominica's laudable aim of becoming the world's first climate-resilient country. Global warming is an existential threat to us all. Dominican's emissions may be small, but great acts are made up of small deeds, and this project is a key tool in the armory of the fight to keep global warming to below 1.5 degrees.
The UK government has been in the forefront in terms of partnership with Dominica's geothermal thrust by investing in the island's drive to explore alternative sources of renewable energy.
As we've said before, the 1.5 degree target is on life support. But this and other projects like it are the medicines needed to bring it back to life. So, through a World Bank Trust Fund, the UK has committed £8.5 million to this project. Despite the high upfront costs of geothermal exploration, we recognise the transformational potential of such projects for small island economies. The UK government made a commitment at COP26 in Glasgow to spend £11.6 billion of international climate finance by 2026 to help developing countries mitigate, respond and adapt to the challenges of climate change. We will triple our funding for adaptation from £500 million in 2019 to £1.5 billion in 2025.
Mr. Grozny says the UK continues to support small island developing states in various ways.
On the world stage, the UK is championing the SIDS cause, in particular by trying to secure increased and easier to access finance for climate vulnerable states and supporting efforts for disaster risk mitigation tools in climate finance.
Meanwhile, efforts continue to build climate resilience in Dominica. Government and KNSJ Green Limited signed a framework agreement to initiate the first-scale green hydrogen geothermal development in the Caribbean. The signing was made official on April 26 during the first annual Hydrogen Summit for the Caribbean in Miami, Florida. Minister for Finance, Economic Development, Climate Resilience and Social Security, Dr. the Honorable Irving McIntyre, Attorney General Honorable Levi Peter, CEO of Dominica Geothermal Development Company, Mr. Fred John, and General Counsel of the National Local Focal Point for Dominica, Mr. Michael Savre, joined the signing ceremony virtually. The framework agreement establishes a basis for these parties to collaborate for the development of a geothermal exploration and geothermal resources concession. This in turn will drive the achievement of key government objectives that include the establishment of a green industrial eco-park project for the development and use of geothermal power for the production, local consumption and international export of green hydrogen and its spin-offs.
The signing of this framework agreement is a momentous occasion for the people and government of the Commonwealth of Dominica. This agreement is one of the primary pillars of our Green Industrial Development Program and our transition to a low-carbon economy. We are confident that this transformation will advance economic, national well-being, while at the same time contributing significantly to the national goal articulated by our Prime Minister in making Dominica the first climate resilient nation in the world. The realization of this program has the potential for Dominica's integration into a regional and international green energy value chain, realizing the supply of green energy commodities to the region and other parts of the world where such demand exists.
This project will complement the work that government continues to do in the geothermal sector, with major advancement being recorded in the geothermal development project in Loda.
This signing today now unlocks the pathway towards further development that is expected to lead to a bankable value proposition for Dominica, allowing for the leveraging of its geothermal power to develop a scalable green hydrogen industry. This new phase in our geothermal development is building upon the experiences gained by Dominica's Geothermal Development Company via its work in the development the Rosa Valley geothermal field resource. The government of the Commonwealth of Dominica hereby expresses thanks to KNSJ Green Limited and the people and government of Trinidad and Tobago for collaborating with Dominica in this bold and imaginative enterprise.
Dr. McIntyre is confident that this agreement will boost the prospects of the country's economic and national well-being. Dominica contains the largest geothermal energy deposit in the Caribbean, and the country has the potential to develop a globally competitive green hydrogen industry.
We do anticipate challenges along this journey, but we are confident that with the collaboration of many partners gathered here today, we will achieve success. We therefore call upon those present far and wide, in particular multilateral, regional, and international financial institutions and other entities along the green energy commodities value chain, to join us in this journey, a journey which will allow for the execution of positive climate action to address the collective existential threat posed to mankind by carbon emissions, and also one which will also transform the lives of citizens of Dominica, Trinidad and Tobago, and the wider Caribbean region.
In April 2022, Kenneth J. Green Limited presented the Climate Resilient Execution Agency with a country assessment. The assessment focused on creating a roadmap for the utilization of Dominica's geothermal resources. The country assessment discovered significant renewable energy potential in Dominica.
There are so many significant upsides to Dominica, both for its economy and its people. For the first time, to be able to meaningfully look at this remarkable renewable energy potential that they have been sitting on for decades and harness it for the benefit of their people and their economy, and let's not forget what's driving all of this, for the environment. So the next question was, well, why now? What's changed? Well, what's changed, as I just alluded to, is this growing reality of the immensity of the climate crisis that is upon us as a people and as a planet. Let's not forget that. That has driven this growing demand exponentially for green hydrogen and green ammonia to be considered.
Meanwhile, CEO of CREED, Ms. Francine Barron, believes Dominica has the transformative opportunity to become a green hydrogen producer.
By tapping into our renewable energy potential and exporting to countries with a high demand for green hydrogen. In essence, Dominica can serve as an industrial center for renewable power generation, hydrogen production, and even further along the value chain into the petrochemical sectors, including ammonia, methanol, and e-fuels. The concept of a green industrial eco-park has been globally accepted as an attractive, sustainable industrial development pathway. A green industrial eco-park that integrates green hydrogen as part of the development framework can contribute significantly to the future sustainable development of our country.
The Dominica Festivals Commission has announced the success of the 12th edition of the Jazz and Creole Festival. Adisa Burton has more.
The 12th edition of Dominica's Jazz and Creole Festival came to life last weekend at Fort Shirley Cabrets National Park in Portsmouth. The event, hosted by the Dominica Festivals Commission, DFC, took place under the Enchanting Rainforest Fantasy theme on April 30, 2023. Dominica's Jazz and Creole Festival, first presented in 2010, intertwines jazz music and the vibrant Creole culture and showcases jazz and Creole artists from around the world. The exciting combination created a festive environment that was once again well received this year. Jazz and Creole 2023 featured performances from Venezuelan orchestra Octeto Canema, American hip-hop duo Black Violin, Haitian-American singer Felicia Ross, Island Jazz Collective featuring Dominican jazz musicians, and Dominica's own Signal Band and Swinging Stars. The festival also included cuisine booths, a children's section with fun-filled activities, fashion displays, modeling segment, and an exhibition of Dominica-based crafts and products.
Sending thanks to all the partners, patrons, performers, and sponsors who helped make Jazz and Creole 2023 a great success. We hope you've saved the date to the World Creole Music Festival, slated for October 27th, 28th, and 29th of 2023, and we look forward to providing Dominicans and visitors with more world-class experiences. Thank you.
Adisi Burton for the Government Information Service.
And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here on the GIS News Production team, I am Julian Morris. Thanks for watching.